Greetings, Inquisitor. Welcome to the Holocron. This is the third in the series where we're going to take questions out of the Discord from the Ask Loquitur channel. For any who aren't familiar, we've got a wonderful Discord community. The link is in the description of the Holocron down below. You can click on that and join up with our Discord. There's a channel where you can ask me questions directly, and what I'm doing here today is answering some of the better questions, and we'll see if we can get people some valuable information. Now, I am trying to increase the subscriber count on my channel, and I need you all to help me with that, please. If you click like and you put a comment in the video, it helps drive the YouTube algorithm. And what that means is that people who like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes will tend to see this video pop up as an option for them to watch if it gets a high enough count. Comments help a lot. Likes help a lot. Please, help us get to our goal. Drive those numbers up. It doesn't have to be a meaningful comment. Just put any comment down there, and that helps more people get the video as an option to watch. And I would appreciate it if you would all help me with that. The questions that we're going to answer today. 7 questions that we've got on the menu. The first is about Galactic War, and a little bit related to that, the second question is about fighting Phoenix. Third question, we're going to talk about promoting to Chromium. A lot of the viewership is earlier game accounts, but a lot of people, even with accounts between 1 year and 2 years old, started out in Bronzium. So we're looking at these promotions, got to figure out what that means. Some talk about the guild event tokens if you're not going for a Gas or Malik early. We're going to talk about modding the Mon Mothma team, Bounty Hunter counter for Qui-Gon Jinn with the OmiGon. And then we're going to talk a little bit about progress in the game, Gear 13 relicking characters, and how to keep from being frustrated. So with that, let's get into the first question. Basically, there's a point in the game where, according to my beginner's guide, you start out with Phoenix, you invest some in them, and then you pretty quickly switch over to more meaningful teams like Sith and the Geos. That does result in this situation somewhere between level, let's say, 50 and 70, where Galactic War does become pretty hard. Now, if you continue to develop your Phoenix, you can harden them up a little bit, get better mods on them, get more stars, more gear, and they can do pretty well in the Galactic War. But instead, we're shifting the focus over to the Geos to try to get the fleet started up. And what that does is it brings our galactic power for the account up. The difficulty of the Galactic War battles is based in part on your galactic power. So as you build more galactic power into the account, it gives you harder battles. Well, you've stopped working on Phoenix, and they're not good enough to finish anymore. You've started working on Geos, but you don't have the Brute Alpha all the way until level 83. So you've got this gap where Galactic War is hard. So there's a few bits of advice that I give to people. The first is, when I did this on my Darth Loquitur account a year ago, I just focused on pilots. Kylo Ren Unmasked, Ahsoka, Geo Spy, Geo Soldier, those were all pilots that I knew I was going to build. Darth Vader is obviously a character that pretty much everybody builds. So I used those characters that I knew could be pilots, and I wanted them for fleet anyway. So for the longest time, my Galactic War team was just a crew of pilots. And that's who I was willing to invest the gear in, so that's who went over there. Now, having Kylo Ren Unmasked helped a lot because he does gain back health and protection every time he gets attacked. So that makes him a pretty durable tank in the early game. He can last through a lot of those Galactic War battles without ever having a meaningful loss of life. So that's one way to help yourself. But if you're doing that transition between the Phoenix and Geos, what I would say is expect a 50% completion rate or less. And you've got 2 choices. You can either build something specifically to try to deal with Galactic War, but just know that by the time you hit level 83 and get that Geo Brute Alpha, you'll never lose a Galactic War again. It'll all be behind you. The difficulty only lasts for about 4 to 6 weeks. So for me, I wouldn't deviate from the course. I would just struggle through it, grind through it, keep working on the teams that you know are important, and then go from there. But those are some options for you. Now, one of the players I was working with was having a problem killing Phoenix, and asked, who do we kill first? Now, to answer that, let's take a look at the Phoenix team and just refresh with Hera's leadership. The big thing is all Phoenix allies grant their unique ability to other Phoenix allies. So what we want to do is kill the character with the most annoying unique ability, and to my opinion, that is Chopper. So recover 15% of max health. When he's damaged by an attack, he gains protection up if he doesn't have protection up, and he has a 30% chance to assist. So this is really giving that unique ability to everybody else is pretty annoying. So getting him out of there cuts back a lot of the health recovery, protection recovery. And Chopper's not easy to kill, but just remember, if you can't kill him with 5 characters, once you get, lose a character or 2 and get worked down potentially to less characters, then certainly you're not going to beat him with 3. He also taunts and gets in the way, so if you're trying to kill, let's say, Hera, Syndulla, you'll have Kain and Jarrus you have to remove taunt from. You'll have Chopper you have to remove the taunt from. It's not too hard to manage one character so you can get Kanan under control. But then if Chopper's your target and you're killing him anyway, then you really don't care if he taunts. So it makes this matchup a little more straightforward, and you just kill the Chopper first, get rid of some of their health and protection recovery. Then you go for Ezra or Hera, the damage dealer, or Hera's got a lot of utility in the team. Zeb is pretty tanky for an attacker, so, sometimes it's hard to get him out of there early. But that's certainly the order I would do it. Chopper first, and then probably Ezra from there, and then clean up the rest of the team. So that's a little bit, that's my opinion. All right, so next question. I'm in Chromium 1, and I'm getting promoted, or I'm in Bronzium. So a lot of players are in Bronzium. They're getting promoted to Chromium. My understanding is everybody who's currently in Bronzium 1 will end up at their respective skill level in Chromium during the next Grand Arena round. And quite a few people are very worried about their fleets. So I made a reply in the Ask Loquitur channel that was a little bit joking around, but I said, step 1, promote. Step 2, work on your fleets. Of course, you do want to try to get your 4 fleets up and running. But step 3 was, be shocked at how bad everybody else's fleets are in Chromium Grand Arena. And guys, most people, even at the Chromium level, don't have 2 fully functional fleets. So if you already have a good fleet to put on defense and a good fleet for offense, you're already ahead of most of the players that you're going to see at the bottom of Chromium. So, and if you scout your opponent and they have really fantastic fleets and you think that you're at a big disadvantage in fleets, take your very best defensive teams, load them all up in that zone in front of fleets, and just stop your opponent from ever getting to your ships. Put your 2 worst fleets on defense. If the opponent gets to them, they kill them, that's fine, whatever. You just have to go on your side and take your 2 fleets in against their defenses and get higher banners or be more efficient. So that's what I would do, try to block off that top zone, turn it into a 2-zone GAC where they're working on killing the bottom zones, and then use your character advantage. And if you're fighting against somebody who has both character and ship advantage, then probably you're already mid-tier Chromium or higher, so don't worry about it. The next opponent will be easier. So I think for people who've been smart about building their account, who did focus on fleets in the right way early game, you have nothing to worry about with going to Chromium. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see in the future, but don't worry about your promotion. Don't panic and try to farm a billion ships. Let's go back to the Loquitur account, and I'll show my fleet plan, what I'm doing to prepare myself. And you can see that I'm still quite a ways off from having 4 functional fleets. But let's say I do have the Galactic Republic fleet using this Houndstooth over there. We do have the malevolence with the Geos, and then we, working on these pilotless droid ships to try to fill in and get that working well. So what I have to do here, because I just don't have enough fleets yet, the Geos are going to be their own fleet. I'll put these 3 Geos with Home 1, most likely. And then under Tarkin, I'm building an Empire fleet that'll include the TIE Advanced, the TIE Bomber, this Imperial TIE Fighter, and then I'm working on the Gauntlet Starfighter. When it's at a low level, it'll be the only reinforcement. And then later, when I get this ship built up well enough, it'll actually be one of the starting 3, and Vader will come in as the reinforcement. And just 4 ships, that's all I need. And I think a lot of people, if I put this on defense along with the Negotiator, even if they bring a good fleet like the Malevolence or their Negotiator onto offense and beat my good fleet, they still have to have a second pretty good offensive fleet to get through the Empire team that I'm going to put together. And that leaves me with the Geos under Home 1 as my secondary fleet, and it leaves me with Malevolence, where I can put like Hyena Bomber, Vulture Droid. I can use this Rebel Y-Wing as one of the starting ships. I can bring in like Slave 1 and Silencer. I could just use all of the other ships that I have with Malevolence. That it won't be a great fleet when I do that, but I think if I take all that stuff on offense, let's say they have one really good fleet, well, then I can put the Geos with Malevolence and I can run a normal Malevolence fleet and just use the scraps of what's left over to beat their other fleet. Or I can divide it up between the Geos as their own fleet if the opponent didn't put good enough defenses down. So I don't really have 4 good fleets. I might have 3, but the key to this is, use what you've got, and it doesn't have to be 6, 7 ships that you put. I know that the way it works now, if I only put 1 reinforcement in a fleet that could have 4, if the opponent fights it, even if they lose, they'll get 1 banner for each reinforcement that I didn't put in. But I'm okay. I feel like if I lose 3 banners on a fleet battle, that's probably not going to be the difference in GAC at the Chromium level. So if your fleets are in worse shape, just remember, especially if you have that Malevolence fleet, it's not that hard to split that out into 2 effective fleets as long as you take all of that stuff on offense. As long as you're taking all of your Malevolence stuff on offense, you can mix and match it and probably beat 2 fleets that your opponent has on defense. All right, number 4, Guild Event Tokens, number 1. I'm not going to build Gas or Malak right away. I don't feel good about just storing up a bunch of get currency for someday. What's the best way to use that? So again, let's just go over and take a look. In the shipments that you get for the Guild Event Token currency, there are several slots here that are the purple gear that you need for relicking characters, taking characters to gear 13. Now remember, if you follow my strategy on how to buy out of the shops versus how to farm, we don't ever farm this gear. We always buy it out of the shops. And the piece that gets used by far the most is the med pack. So let's see, we don't have one up over here either. But the med pack gets used by all kinds of characters and all kinds of different builds. It shows up here a lot. So you really need more of these by far than any other piece. So what I really do advise saving, because if you don't save up over here, or you can see I don't have any savings because I'm actively building Hermit Yoda right now. So I'm spending my currency on something, but if you're not actually spending your currency on something, what you want to do, you just want to come in here and buy those med packs. And if there's no med packs available, save the currency. Stock that up, really do stock it up. And those med packs will show up often enough that you'll frequently be, using up this currency. So it's going to really take you a long time to get to 50,000. But then if you just buy the med packs out of here and you make it to 50,000 stored up in the bank, then of course you can start using it for some other pieces out of here. These computers are the second most used piece. So you can buy some of those scanners. You can buy some of these detonators. which can be used to make the cybernetics, and those cybernetics can be used to craft this, and that can be used to go to the scavenger and build up electrium conductors at a very good rate. So I would recommend buying those pieces out of there, using them wisely. But really, until you get 50,000 stored up, only buy med packs. All right, back to the question list. Number 5, modding the Mon Mothma team. Now, I have a unique way of modding my Mon Mothma team, and there's a reason for it, so I'm going to explain it in here today. And you can decide if that strategy would be right for you, or if you want to just do something more traditional, that's fine. But let's talk through the mechanics of the Mon Mothma team and see if I can talk you into this strategy that I use and why it can be useful. It's a very specific thing, right? So if we look at her leadership, one of the interesting things, the stats that they share, Rebel fighter allies gain 8% of the combined base health, protection, offense, defense, potency, and tenacity. Okay? She and all Rebel fighters. All right. So they get 8% of everything on those stats. I like to have 3PO and Chewie in this team. And again, if you have a functional CLS team and 3PO and Chewie is taken up, then this isn't an option for you. But for a lot of people, they don't have the CLS team, so you can put him in. Even if he's just 3 stars and a garbage character, it doesn't matter, because he'll be able to do this, where the allied leader is a rebel. He gains 40% of their health, protection, offense, defense, potency, and there's the tenacity again, guys. So he gets 40% and shares 20% of that with all rebel allies. Okay, so now that's 2 rounds of sharing tenacity. As far as I know, there is no other team in the game that can do this. Of course, there's teams like Clones that get the tenacity up buff that make it very difficult to put debuffs on them. Padme with protection up, of course, has a mechanic around that. But there's no team that's just naturally got ridiculous tenacity except this team. Mon Mothma has a very high base tenacity. It's over 100, I believe, like 102. So we mod her for tenacity. We go for good substats. You can see here that I've got my Mon Mothma 206% tenacity. And then we mod all the other characters for tenacity as well. We don't have to go as much all in on these guys. We do want a little bit of speed on them and other decent stats. But here you can see even my POW is almost 100% tenacity. The Hoth Rebel Scout is used to drive turn meter with his basic. So this has a 40% chance to give turn meter to everybody. That's his purpose on the team. And the tenacity on him is about 119%, almost 120. And then I use K2SO as a tank, and I've got his tenacity cranked up. And now him I do focus and try to get good tenacity on, so he's at 164. One of the reasons I like K2SO in this team, he's not commonly used. Now he would be replaced with Kyle Katarn, for example. Most people who play this team would put Kyle Katarn in place of the K2SO. The interesting thing, the thing that I like, he has a counterattack ability. So he counterattacks almost 100% of the time. It's halved if he's debuffed. Well, if he has massive tenacity and he's not going to get debuffed, then this is pretty much always the 97.6% counter chance. When he does a counterattack after being attacked, he regains taunt and 3PO and Chewie assist. So even while the opponent's attacking into him, they can remove his taunt. It doesn't matter. If it's like Ahsoka, hits him, removes taunt, he attacks again, gains the taunt back right away, and 3PO and Chewie assist him. So it is really a lot of damage output from his assists. And of course, with the 3PO and Chewie relic, plus stealing 40% of Mon Mothma's offense, he really hits it incredibly hard in this team. But this team doesn't have to be relic like this to work. Mon Mothma, the higher you put her, the better her stats are, the more 3PO and Chewie will share. So she's kind of the key in this team. So how high does the tenacity really go? Well, let's calculate, right? So we saw she had 200 tenacity, and let's just average it out and say we've got 100 tenacity on everybody. It's a bit more than that, but it puts our total tenacity over 500 for these 4 characters. She's going to get 8%. Everybody here is going to get 8% of that shared pool. So that's just going to take 40 tenacity. Everybody gets 40. So now she's at 240. He's at 140. The Scout will be 160, and K2 will be pushing 200. Now 3PO and Chewie comes in, looks at Mon Mothma, shares out that 240 at 20%. So everybody's going to get, between 48 and 50, about 48 to 50 extra tenacity on top of that, including Mon Mothma. So now she went from 200 to 240 to 288, 290, somewhere up there. The K2SO is going to be up around 240, and these guys are going to be up around 180 and 200. So just to get started, your opponent needs over 100% potency on any character to land a debuff, and it becomes increasingly unlikely that your opponent's going to be able to have a meaningful team to debuff you. Against things like Night Sisters, even if they have 120% potency, that gives them a 20% chance to affect POW and no chance to affect any of the other characters. So teams that rely on debuffs like the Plague quickly just lose to this team. So plus, if anybody does get debuffed, Mon Mothma on her basic, whenever she does this, she dispels all debuffs on the weakest rebel ally. And the way this works is it's not the weakest rebel ally overall, it's the weakest rebel ally who actually has debuffs to remove. So if your opponent does land a couple debuffs on one of your guys, very quickly they're removed. So against things like Count Dooku, he doesn't get any stuns on you. Against Ewoks or other teams that use dazes, they just won't get that mechanic to stick on the team. So there's a lot of different ways to mod this team. You can work around it. But this is the only team I've ever seen where you can get all the characters to 200 or better tenacity. And that allows me to use this on offense in Grand Arena for some special matchups where I feel like it gives me a huge advantage. All right, so that's interesting. Again, maybe you can use it, maybe not, but that's the information on why you see my Mon Mothma with tenacity, which really looks goofy. If people look at me over on Swiggo GG and they see all these tenacity mods on Mon Mothma, it's like, what's going on there? But that's the strategy. All right, number 6, do bounty hunters counter the Qui-Gon Jinn with Omicron? I'm going to start calling him OmiGon. I don't know. I think that's a cooler name than Qui-Gon Jinn or some of the other stuff floating around. I need to have my own name for this guy, so I'm going to call him OmiGon. Somebody linked a video with Van Seal beating a good Qui-Gon team with bounty hunters, and I got to say, it's pretty fantastic. So if you guys are struggling with the counter, I don't want to do my own video and take credit for it. I'll just send you over there. Check that out. Basically, he's using Mando's Disintegrate. And even though the Jedi can't be killed while Qui-Gon is still alive, the Disintegrate mechanic doesn't kill them. It just removes them. So, Disintegrate Anakin, Disintegrate Kenobi, and then by the time you kill Qui-Gon, you've only got 2 or 3 Jedi left, and it's nice. So shout out for that. Thanks to the person who posted that over in the Ask Loquitur, and it's worth checking out. Okay, last one we have here is slow progress. Trying to get things to relic level, gear 13, relic, and then trying to get them to relic 7. And you spend weeks and weeks getting this character up to relic 7, and then you don't win the game. So it kind of feels like maybe for some people it's a bit boring. There's not much gratification in relicking these characters. I think the important thing to understand, this is really a game with a long-reaching play arc. You gotta love collecting things. The relic characters do pay off, but it's not obvious and it's not at first. 2 bits of advice that I would give to any brand new players: make sure that your first few relic characters are pilots, or have a direct contribution to a team that you want to play. But pilots get a double benefit, right? Because you see the character in the game, and then you get to also see the benefit of the character in their fleet, in making your fleet better. Kylo Ren Unmasked is a great example of that. The TIE Silencer is an awesome ship. You get the character who's good, the ship that's good, and the ship gets better when you relic him, and you can kind of feel that. Geo Spy, I feel, is another example. The ship is good. The character, having a relic spy, makes the Geos much harder to counter and much easier to do the Wat Tambor mission. So some characters like that I think are beneficial. What I've done and tried to show in the progress reports for my Loquitur account, set very short-term goals, Plan to relic a character, give yourself a timeline, and then at the end of it, you've reliced a character, and on one hand, maybe it took you 3 weeks to get that Gear 13 and relic in place, but at the same time, if you thought it was going to take 3 weeks, and it takes 3 weeks, it feels pretty good to meet your target. If you plan it for 3 weeks, and a week in, you're like, oh man, it's really taking a long time to farm, remembering that your target is still 2 weeks in the future, it helps, calibrate and say, yeah, okay, it's going slow, but I didn't expect to get it for 3 weeks anyway. And just to put that out there, again, I think for most people, if you can relic a character every 3 weeks, it's a good enough pace. Once you get your account up and going and you get a good strategy for relicking, you should be able to relic a character every 2 weeks, maybe 2 characters every 5 weeks, something like that. But 2 to 3 weeks is a pretty normal timeline for getting a character to Gear 13 and relic. If you've got a decent guild and you're doing events in the game, then you're playing the whole game. Now, if you're in a poor guild or you're not playing the events, then all of this stuff is really going to take longer. If you're not doing well in fleet arena and your crystal income's low and you can't do all your daily refreshes, that slows things down. So, this all really has to come together. Work on your fleets, get those pilots up and running, get good placement in fleets to drive your crystals, and use that to keep the progress up on your relics. And honestly, if you really can't stand that it takes 2 to 3 weeks to relic a character, then maybe it's not the right game for you. And I hate to say that because I love to promote this game and I want everybody to play it. But it really is a grindy game and it really takes a long time. And you have to figure out ways to make that okay. Otherwise, you'll fall into the trap of spending a bunch of money that you didn't want to spend or getting frustrated with the game. So again, short-term goals, pick a character, work just on that character for a couple weeks, get it to relic. And, if you focus on pilots at first, you get the benefit of seeing it over in fleet as well as the character. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Those were my 7 questions for the day. I hope these holocrons are helping some people. Remember, just leave a comment down below. Any kind of comment helps drive the algorithm. Hit that like button to help drive more subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you just click the button. You don't have to hit the notification bell and get pinged if you don't want to. That's up to you. But subscribing is for free. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't annoy you. So it just it helps the channel. So I'd appreciate it if you guys could do that if you haven't done it already. And join us over on Discord. There's a competition that'll be going on. And if we hit our subscriber target, you all can participate in that competition, win some cash and prizes. So that's fun stuff. Get over on Discord. The link is in the description down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next holocron.